Hello everyone, so today's video is finally going to be a complete breakdown of all of the changes and everything that we've been doing in the Squad Ops Hardcore mod. We're going to be talking about the documentation, the scope, the future, and basically the mindset behind a lot of the development changes that we have put into this mod. Now, if you have not seen this mod or played it, I'll leave a link in the description down below to this document as well as the mod itself. And the squadops.gg servers have been running an occupation-only server, so if you want to get in, that's where we're playing. And we're going to be breaking down what occupation actually is as a game mode in this document. So first off, this is a mod that's created by Squad Ops and myself, as well as a lot of help from Wasti. A lot of you guys might know Wasti from, developing the Ocus mod. He's done a lot of other Squad SDK stuff, so huge shout out to Wasti for helping us get this along. He's been doing like 99% of the work on this mod. But let's jump straight into it. So first off, the direction and intent. The Squad Ops Hardcore mod is primarily focused on rebalancing and recreating the squad experience as imagined by Squad Ops. Now, I created Squad Ops maybe about 4 years ago, and the whole idea behind Squad Ops was one life events that made the entire team, the entire platoon work together, and it was incredibly thematic, incredibly immersive, and even more hardcore. Now, we're taking some of those ideas from our one life events and putting them into the public play, but we aren't bringing that one life feeling to you guys. That's just way too hard to do in a public sense. We're just trying to grab that platoon-wide teamwork that's necessary, as well as that sandbox kind of experience where the command and the platoon leaders have the tactical freedom to address each and every problem that they come across in their own way, and they don't feel like they're being, hamstrung or being handheld by the game mode itself, like Insurgency, where you have to take out caches, or Invasion, where it's very linear and you have to take out the objective, and that's the only way you can win those rounds. In Occupation, there are multiple different win conditions and different ways that you can approach every single map, so try to get that replayability, as well as addressing some other problems with Vanilla Squad, where you don't actually utilize a lot of the map. It's just cap point to next cap point to next cap point, and every single firefight in between kind of feels like it's, useless or not relevant, or even a waste of time if you're not on the objective. So this is going to address a lot of that, and that's basically the very base idea of where this game mode comes from. So, a couple links up here once you get onto the page, but we're going to be jumping straight into the meat of this mod, which is the Occupation game mode. A lot of the changes in this mod are based around the Occupation game mode. It's basically a FOB-centric sandbox where you guys can go in and have a very different experience every single time that you play it. One of the things that we do notice is that it's such a sandbox experience that players usually at this stage, and this very early on in development, and people are still learning the game mode, people are defaulting to this very, straight on meat grind kind of approach, where I want commands and squad leaders to realize they have the tactical freedom to do a lot of the cool things that you can't do in Vanilla Squad, whether that's convoys, escorts, whether that's search and destroy missions, or flanks with Humvees and massive convoys and stuff like that. There's a lot of cool things that you can do in Occupation that you can't do in Invasion or AAS or Insurgency, just because of how restrictive those game modes are and how you need to always be operating 100% unless you're gonna get rolled. So Occupation kind of takes the handcuffs and the hamstring away and lets commanders do what they want to do for an awesome thematic team fight. So that's basically the general idea of the game mode. We're going to be talking about how we get that experience in play. So the first thing is the AO mechanic. Now, a lot of players see the AO mechanic and they assume that it's like King of the Hill. And you can see a picture here on screen right now. This is the AO. It's this big purple circle that you see on the map. And when people see this, sometimes they instantly think, oh, it's only one cap zone. Oh, it's King of the Hill, right? But it's very close to that but it's not necessarily meant to act as like a cap point or King of the Hill. It's essentially a zone where players should be. If one team has more players than the other in the zone, then you'll start to bleed tickets. But this doesn't usually happen until you have at least a 7-player lead. So there's a lot of leeway in that difference that players can kind of be in here without causing bleed. What that allows players to do is they can flank outside the bubble, they can be in vehicles, everything in here is relevant when it comes to a gunfight. For example, when we look at AAS, unless you're in the cap zone, let's say you have the cap zone right here in this little compound in between these two fields, everything outside is almost irrelevant, because what matters in AAS or Invasion is bodies on the cap, because that's how you get the objective and move to the next one. By making the zone where players feel relevant much larger, you can actually have all these firefights and all this terrain all around this objective to play with, and you'll feel like you're allowed to finish that firefight. Where in vanilla games, sometimes you feel like, hey, we're not on the cap, just give up, respawn, we'll get back on the cap. Or hey, don't stop there, just keep moving, don't stop the vehicle, there's no point fighting here. Now with this zone of relevancy, like really large, you actually have the incentive to stay, fight, and complete things, and flank and use all this terrain, which is something that I think Vanilla Squad really falls short on, because you end up just going cap zone, next cap zone, next cap zone, and all this area in between, let's say like point A and point B and point C, all this area in between is kind of irrelevant because the fighting ends up being a meat grinder on the cap exactly. So this is why we went with a large cap zone, and we might even, open this up a little bit more. Because what a bigger cap zone allows you to do is get more different fob placements in, more dynamic gameplay, more strategies, more flanking, a whole bunch of stuff that the commanders can use at their own discretion, without the game saying, hey, you have to take this route, hey, you have to go from this point to this point, or hey, you have to put your fob here. Like, players have this entire cut of the map to work with. So that's a really exciting part of why we decided to go with a very large circle. And once again, don't think of it as a cap zone, don't think of it as a point or king of the hill. It's just the area, it's the AO where you're supposed to be operating in and where you're supposed to be playing. You can go outside of it for short bursts, you can do a whole bunch of stuff. But yeah, that's the whole reason behind having an AO, and just remember, it's not king of the hill, it's not a cap zone, it's just the area where you're supposed to be in. So getting more in depth on the mechanics of the AO is set to go live 10 minutes after. So this essentially gives teams 10 minutes where they can play outside the zone, whether that's getting really long flanks off on the beginning, or if they're trying to get, sneaky fobs up, or if they have to drive in, there's a long drive, especially because on maps like Kohat, let's say this is in the center here, between both teams, that means one spawn is all the way out to the east and one spawn is all the way out to the south. It can take 5 to 10 minutes sometimes to drive in to the cap point. So this allows teams to kind of feel like they have the breathing room to set up and get the game started how they want to. Now, moving on from the actual delay, something that we do want to note is that this also plays into how Occupation is focused around asymmetrical gameplay. We have two main faction categories. We have the conventional forces, which is all your first world armies. So your Great Britain, you have your US, your Rangers, your Russia, your MEA. All of those guys are considered conventional forces, or CF for short, and you'll see that in the document a lot. And then you have the irregular forces, the IRF, which is going to be your militia and your insurgents. And they play very differently. That was something we really want to hit on in Occupation, was making sure that the conventional factions and the irregular factions fought differently, that it wasn't just the same kind of meat grinder every single time you went in, that there was a different kind of play style to both. So moving on, we've already talked about the 7-player lead and talking about how that lead is rather large. 7 players is essentially a full squad, just so that players and commands have the flexibility to go outside the zone for very short bursts. And this AO caps out a 20%, not 20%, a 20 ticket bleed if there is a lot of players off the point. So what that essentially turns into is a mercy bleed. So if you essentially get wiped off on the point, you're losing 20-ish tickets every 30 seconds about. So that's like a really, really fast way to end the game. So make sure you're in the zone when you play Occupation. But don't forget, you can always dart out on the sides and do the flanks and all that cool stuff if it's a short kind of execution. I think that we've talked about everything here about the ticket drain and the cap at 20. Yeah, controlling the AO should be considered consequential to your primary objective of destroying enemy FOBs. And as said before, serves to primarily centralize players, influence file placement, and act as a mercy bleed if a team is completely wiped from the zone. So don't think that this is the primary way that you get tickets in Occupation. The main way that you get tickets in Occupation, or remove tickets from the other team, I should say, is by destroying FOBs and vehicles. By getting rid of fobs, conventional faction fobs are worth 100 tickets. You start with 500. That means if you place a bad fob and you lose it, that's a fifth of your tickets down the drain. IRF factions have different fob mechanics, and we'll get into that later, but CF factions, you need to use your forward operating base as an actual base. We've completely done away with the vanilla squad meta. Hey, drop your radio here, and no one will know, and we'll just use it as a team spawn. We've done a lot of things to A, prevent ninjaing fobs, B, prevent stealth fobs, and C, make fobs more durable so they aren't just absolutely annihilated by a commander strike. So these are things that I thought was really thematic to squad, but it didn't. Like, squads vanilla fobs don't feel like fobs. They feel like you drop the radio, get enough for hab, you get enough for an ammo crate, and that's all you build. It's not a forward operating base, it's a team spawn. So we want to fix that and give you a reason to build up your fob, give you a reason to, every single time that you drop a fob as a conventional faction, you need to defend it and you need to build it up. Because one of the mechanics that we put into the game is conventional fobs after 15 minutes will be revealed to the enemy team. And we'll kind of show you how that kind of works. But the whole idea there is you don't just drop fobs willy-nilly all over the place for team spawns and just have them as sneaky ground team-wide spawns where you can just pop out and assault someone. These are bases, and they should feel like bases. So we tried to make as many changes as we could to keep it without getting ridiculous, to make those fobs feel relevant to defend and to actually build up. Because I think that's a part of squad that a lot of players like doing. Like, my super fob videos are some of the most popular videos. People like building up bases. People like defending them, having awesome defenses on player-built objectives. That's essentially what a fob is. It's a player-built cap zone. So instead of the game telling you, like an AAS or an invasion, hey, this is the objective, everyone has to go here, players, commanders, have the full flexibility to say, hey, I want to place my fob here on this hill, or maybe I want to drop it down in the valley, or maybe I want to put in the compound over here. And then that is a player generated objective, which is something that doesn't really happen in vanilla squad. It kind of happens, but it's not necessarily required for teamwork to take it down. It's very easy for people to ninja it. It's easy for commanders to just arty it off the map. In occupation, fobs feel like bases, and they require teamwork in order to both defend and attack them. So just a reminder that sometimes fewer fobs for conventional factions is better than more. If you have 2 fobs and you place maybe one here and one on the south hill, just to let you know, you now have to defend 2 further spread fobs, and you might split yourself too thin, and you might not be able to attack, you might not be able to defend, just because you have multiple squads split off to kind of cover different areas. So sometimes, and we're seeing this meta kind of develop as time goes on, players will just stick to one fob, defend it, and have a much more organized plan for the platoon. So moving on from that whole fob talk, and we'll get into how the teams of IRF and CF differ as far as fob mechanics in a second here. Just know that this is a very fob-centric game mode, and the reason for that is because we wanted to give players the ability to dictate where they wanted to fight, where they wanted their objective to be, and by doing so, we have an unlimited amount of options here for different fob placements, different way the game will play out every time the map is loaded. And this circle moves around on the map every time you load it up, so it's randomized every time the match begins. So there's a lot of room here for complete flexibility, and it's completely decided by the commanders as far as, do we stick with one fob, do we go with 2, do we split the fobs, do we want to have one in the low ground and one on top supporting, and there's a lot of cool things that we've seen happen with this system already. So faction mechanics. We're going to start talking about a little bit more how the CF and IRF factions are different as their fob gameplay and actual gunplay gameplay changes. So we're going to start off with the conventional forces fob mechanics. First things, you're locked to 2 fobs at any point in time as conventional forces, right? We want to make sure that these fobs feel like fobs. They're not little spawns for the whole team. They're actual bases that you build up. And so limiting them to 2 makes you really, really think, where are we going to place our bases? So they're very important. You need to think about where you're placing them. Don't just do the vanilla meta thing of, hey, we're going to put one here and then all the way across the map, or that feel like you always have to have 2 spawns. You don't. You don't always have to have 2 fobs. Sometimes it's going to spread you out a little bit too much. So just keep in mind that sometimes 1 is better than 2 in this situation. Another thing is, once again, touching on the fact that they're worth 100 tickets. That means that you cannot lose these fobs. When you drop a fob, you need to defend it and build it up, or remove it. If you think you're gonna lose it, you have to get rid of it. So fobs are very, very important in this game mode, and it's important that players who are coming into this occupation game mode understand that, because we've seen a lot of fresh squad leaders hop in and all of a sudden, hey, they're dropping fobs everywhere, they're losing them, the game's over in 20 minutes because they're losing fobs left and right. One thing that I do want to also mention is that conventional forces have adjusted radios, which means that there's a large antenna on top and they cannot be placed inside. We're trying to get rid of that ninja sneak fob meta, so it's out in the open. You have a big radio tower, so it's visible from, I'd say, a good while away. And then you also have this red circle that pops up that shows you roughly where the fob is after 15 minutes. So really getting rid of that ninja fob mechanic. One thing that we are looking at here is getting also rid of the people who are going to ninja these fobs. So fobs can only be damaged by shovels. CF fobs can only be damaged by shovels. They can't be IAD'd, they can't be RD'd. They're only taken down by shovels, and they have a lot of health. So you should only lose an FOB or a fob when you deserve to lose it, when it is truly overrun. Because I know a lot of players in squad, they'll just be hanging out, and then all of a sudden, some kind of engineer comes around and he shovels, ID down, pops it, fob's gone. So we kind of changed that now. I mean, the bleed out now exists in vanilla, but this is really focused on making sure that when you go after a fob or a hab, it's not a lone wolf, small guy, or small team moving to take out a fob. You need teamwork to take out these bases, right? So really leaning into what these should actually be. So fobs are very durable now, but they're very exposed, as I think they should be as a forward operating base. So that's like the most important things here for the CF fobs. They're invulnerable to all damage aside from shovels, so don't try to arty them. Don't try to, you know, sneak up and lone wolf with your combat engineer kit. We've tried to get rid of as many lone wolf playstyles as possible in this mod because we think that squad should be a platoon shooter. You should be focused on working with teammates, communicating, and working as you know, individual squads together, which means you don't all have to be balled up together in one tactical blob, but maybe spread out across the map, but communicating, working for pinching maneuvers, supporting each other, running logi, running mortars, using HMG, suppression, all that kind of stuff. We want to bring this team play, focus on team play, dynamic and thematic gameplay. So that's like the three buzzwords I'd have to say is teamwork, thematic, and dynamic. So making sure that you're always having the option to do what you want to do and you don't feel like you're constrained by the game. The last way that CF fobs are different is that they interact with the AO itself, with this purple circle. So in this picture here, we have a red circle and a purple circle. The red circle shows that an enemy fob is somewhere within this location. It can be anywhere in this red circle. So it could be on the far left, it could be dead in the center, it could be somewhere in the middle here. But this red circle comes up after 15 minutes. So you get 15 minutes essentially of it being kind of unseen so that you can build up your defenses. But after 15 minutes, it pops up, and this completely removes the ability for squad leaders to be dropping down these sneaky fobs to just drop their whole team out of nowhere, right? When you drop a fob, it's known. One other way is that they interact with the AO is they gain tickets, okay? So depending on where you've placed your fob as a CF, you're going to be seeing a ticket gain after 15 minutes. If you place it on the outer 20% of the circle, so if we look at this big circle, the outer 20% is like roughly outside of this circle. So anywhere in between here along the circle, you're going to get 5 tickets per 15 minutes. So if you put 1 fob out here, you're getting 5 tickets per 15 minutes. If you put 2 and they're like out here, then you get 10 for every 15, right? Basic math. The inner center 20 to 80% of the circle is going to give you roughly 15, not roughly, exactly 15 tickets per 15 minutes. So you're kind of incentivized to get closer and closer to the center. With the center 20%, which is like dead on center here, you'll get about exactly 25 tickets per 15 minutes. So you're incentivized as a squad leader to get your fob closer and closer to the center because you'll get tickets back out of it. Of course, you need to hold these positions in order to get some net gain. So yes, you can stick it, let's say, on this hill up here on the outskirts, but you're only going to get 5, or you could go for the risky ballsier play and try to drop it somewhere closer to the center to get a bigger ticket return. So once again, giving you a lot of options, but not forcing you into any particular playstyle. You can play 2 on the outside, you could try 2 on the center, or 2 in the middle, you can try 1 in the middle, 1 on the outside. There's a lot of different options here and combinations that platoon commanders can use and look at so that they can approach each map that they play differently. So a lot of replayability here. So moving on from conventional factions, now we're going to get into some spicy stuff, which is the irregular force fob mechanics. So irregular force, once again, that's your insurgents or militia. They're very different. They have 5 fobs up at any point in time and are only damaged by IED, C4, or incendiary grenades. So kind of think of them as insurgency mode caches. That's kind of how you should see IRF fobs. They're not worth nearly as many tickets as CF fobs. They're only worth 15 compared to the 100 for the CF. So they aren't really needed to be defended. And then one thing is that they are only damaged by IEDs and C4s and incendiary grenades. So this is to prevent people from going around lone wolfing with their shovel, just looking for IRF fobs. You have to have a combat engineer kit to take down these radios. Now, why is it important to get rid of the radios? It's because 10 tickets are drained from the enemy every 15 minutes for every IRF fob in the zone. So if we go back to this circle here and we have 5 IRF, if the militia or the insurgents are able to get 5 fobs up in here, you're losing 50 tickets every 15 minutes. So there's a lot of pressure for conventional forces to go out and kind of play the mode like insurgency, hunt down these fobs and pop them with their combat engineers. So getting that asymmetrical gameplay in. Now, because IRF fobs are not worth as much as CF fobs, they don't feel the pressure to defend them as much, which means that as conventional forces are looking for these fobs that are hidden around the map, The conventional forces must also defend their primary or secondary fobs, which the IRF will have the opportunity to attack. So it's getting that cat and mouse kind of insurgency style gameplay, guerrilla war gameplay out of the militia and insurgents, which is really, really cool because Occupation offers both of this in essentially one playstyle or in one game mode. You can have conventional on conventional, which feels like a standard frontline kind of fight with flanking, and you have armored movements and you have a lot of airborne assaults and cool stuff like that. And then you have IRF versus CF or versus conventional, which means that you're having a much different playstyle where IRF is going around, they're doing hit and runs, they're doing ambushes, and CF is trying to group up, convoy around, and search and clear all these little hamlets, nooks, and valleys to find these IRF caches. So a lot of cool stuff here that really went into making sure that we get some asymmetrical gameplay out of the two factions, or two types of factions. So that's supposed to give you the feeling that, like, at the beginning of the game, IRF might only have 2 fobs up, and you're only losing 20 tickets every 15 minutes. So if you put your fob in the center, you might be outgaining them. But as time goes on in the match, and IRF gets more and more mobile and more spread out across the map, they might get 4 fobs up, 5 fobs up. And now it's really getting out of control. That 50 ticket drain every 15 minutes can really put you out of the fight. So now what you can do is, it feels like there's an insurgency around you as a conventional faction. You feel it thematically, that there are things that you need to go out and find and destroy. Now, one thing to note is, unlike insurgency, in insurgency, it is the win condition for either faction, for insurgents to defend the caches and for conventional forces to attack them in the standard vanilla insurgency game mode. In Occupation, it's not a direct win condition. Just taking out enemy fobs does not win you the game. There are multiple different routes that each platoon commander can take. Does the IRF commander go ahead and spread them out and play ambushes on the sites? Does he go after the CF main fob or secondary fob? Does he ambush convoys? Does the CF commander just focus on one fob and try to hold off waves of them? Does he go on a really aggressive patrol and just counterclockwise patrols the area with no fob? There are multiple different possibilities for each commander to play out each round of Occupation, which is really fun and really cool. And we're just now seeing commanders finally learn how to play this game mode and how to actually take full advantage of the sandbox. And it's only going to get better with time, because this is, as we've already gone through it a little bit, it's pretty complex. There's a lot to think about here, a lot of different strategies, so many new metas to actually be developed. And as the circle moves around, as the factions change, like, everything's going to get more and more complex. And I think that's really good for replayability. It might be, it's probably most definitely hard to get into once you are jumping into it, but once you learn the basic mechanics of how the fobs work, why the circle is where it is, and, you know, generally the strategies that you can employ, you can get really tricky with it. You'll start seeing people do really cool flanks or Humvee assaults or air assaults, like really cool mobile stuff that you can't really do in the standard vanilla squad. And even like escorting lodges and making sure that your lodges get in is very important, because building up fobs is actually viable now, and you need to defend your fobs because they're worth tickets and they're your only spawn point in the zone. So I think we've done a really good job of making sure that this game mode feels thematic. So that's talking about the IRF fob mechanics, and that's like a lot of the fob mechanics and the AO mechanics are the bulk of what Occupation is really about, and everything, all the other changes around it have been made to kind of support that kind of idea of a sandbox experience that's thematic and dynamic. So moving on now, we're going to go to general gameplay changes, and there's a lot of things here that we've touched on that I think a lot of you will enjoy, especially if you like hardcore one life milsim-ish type events like we do at Squad Ops, because that was our goal. Is, once again, this is all in the vision of Squad Ops and making sure that we can bring that kind of experience to the public without the one life hassle. So trying to make sure that we get that suppression in, making sure we get those infantry tactics in, getting that platoon teamwork in, and that communication. We really wanted to focus on all of that while making these changes. So first off, we've got infantry changes. We've changed, well, that's at a later bullet point, but infantry changes. So total stamina pool increased by 20% and stamina regeneration increased by 10%. This is to allow for smoother long distance infantry maneuvers. So what this essentially does is it allows you as a squad, as an infantry squad out there in the field, to sprint along and get your flanks done a little bit faster without having a grueling time, you know, that walking simulator type feel, because you'll be able to sprint 20% longer, and that comes back 10% faster. So that's something we wanted to kind of focus on is this is an infantry mod. It's not really an armor mod. It's not focused around air battles or anything like that. This is mainly focused around an infantry experience. So we want to make sure that when infantry squad leaders are making their maneuvers, they don't feel like it's an absolute pain in the ass. To get things a little bit more thematic, we've also increased CF health by 10%. This means that compared to IRF, they're a little bit tankier, but with all that kit on, they're 10% slower. So this is kind of going hand in hand to act as a kind of counterbalance to the stamina pool and the stamina regeneration. We didn't want players zipping around like crazy, and in CQB especially, we didn't want to feel like Call of Duty speed movement. So that's why we decreased the movement speed of CF factions by 10%. This also means that Insurgent and IRF factions have that mobility advantage and they can get around the map, which in hand with their multiple fob advantage really gives this feeling that you're being swarmed by, forces native to the region. Falling damage no longer causes bleeding. This is like an annoying vanilla thing that we removed just because I never understood why this was a thing. Loadout changes. We've changed a lot about the loadouts and we're still going through it. This document that's linked here, it's not 100% up to date, but it's pretty close. So if you wanted to see exactly what we've done, we've essentially removed a lot of the marksman classes. We've added in an HMG Dishka class for the insurgents. We've made everything a little bit more true to real life. So the Russian squad leader kits are a little bit more accurate, and the actual loadouts for each faction are a little bit more accurate. So just making sure that it's a little bit more thematic instead of just cookie cutter loadouts for each and every faction. So we've kind of changed them up to make sure that every faction feels a little bit different. Insurgent optics removed. This is to once again make sure that insurgents are playing differently than standard factions. We don't want insurgents and militia running into standard engagements against conventional forces. We want to make sure that you're getting a different experience when you're playing against or as insurgents, because I think that's really thematic and it's going to really make the game feel different than, hey, okay, we're just playing as insurgents and we have, slightly worse gear, but it's going to play essentially the same. We want to make sure that you get a different experience because I think that's really special, and it really, like, when we're playing Occupation, it does feel thematic. It feels really immersive because you feel like there's this insurgency that's swarming around you. It's incredibly mobile. They're popping out of the ground. They have hideouts, and you're this conventional force, and you have better weapons, but you're much slower. You're tied to this fob. You have to support it. You have to defend it. And these insurgents are just popping out of the woodwork all around you. They're fast. They move quick. They've got a whole bunch of spawn locations. It's really, really cool. We've added more lat to insurgents because with insurgents optics being removed, we've had to balance them in unique ways. So one way that we've done it is we've given them more lats. We've given them the HMG role, which has a portable dishka. We've given them a VBID or SVBID, which is a suicide truck more or less. Shotguns have been added to some roles. We've reduced the marksman just because once again we want to get rid of as much of that lone wolf experience as possible because we want to focus on teamwork. We added range finders to the squad leader and the fire team leader, as well as a couple of the marksman roles that remained. And then we've also given all infantry 3 bandages to make sure that, hey, you're not greedy with your bandages. You're willing to help other people and revive them. And all infantry roles are giving 2 sandbags to dig in. Now, this is a really cool mechanic here because I know a lot of you guys have heard me complain about squad map design before and talking about how there isn't that much micro terrain when you get into a gunfight somewhere. You have no cover. It just feels like ass. There's like a bush you can hide in, but that's it. Now you actually have the ability to better your position in a non-lethal way. And this is really cool because as an SL, if I pick a good spot and I know we're going to be here for a sec, I can tell my guys to dig in. They bust out their sandbags, they start building up a little bit, and we have a defensible position. It's not going to, protect us against tanks or artillery, but if we get into a firefight with our rifles, we know that we have some cover here. And we've done a small change here as well. We've made sandbags build 2 times slower, because the last thing we wanted to do was see infantry roles just dump out their sandbags and Fortnite themselves up a wall real fast. So when you drop these sandbags, you do need some time to prepare. You can't just drop them in a firefight and build it up because it takes some time to get up. SR roles have been given shovels, just a quality of life thing. It doesn't really have that much consequence in the game aside from making things a little bit easier and smoother around. Revive changes. So the medic revive time has been reduced to 4 seconds, and the non-medic revive time has been reduced to 8 seconds, down from 17. So this is almost a 50% cut in the amount of time it takes for non-medics to revive. Now, the reason why we made this non-medic revive time change is because what we realized in vanilla gameplay was that people would not wait for revives unless it was a medic. If you had a blueberry walking up and he's a rifleman and he's the only guy left, the medics are dead, a lot of players are just giving up because it takes that person 17 seconds to revive you, and in vanilla squad you come back with like 1% health, which is you might as well die anyways. If you fall from like a relatively, high height at that health, you just die from your ankles breaking. So a lot of players were just not waiting for non-medic revives to happen, because if you're gonna wait 17 seconds, I might as well just wait 70 seconds and respawn on the rally or the fob and come back with full health, maybe rearm as well. So we want to make sure that squads stick together by getting revives to a place where players felt like they could help each other. Now, we've also increased the minimum revive health from 1% to 35. Now, at this rate, you still have a lot of sway, I'm pretty sure, with your aim, because your health is low, but you get stamina regained back. And I know a lot of the players who play squad right now, they know if you get revived in vanilla from a rifleman, you come back with such low health, you can't even regenerate stamina, and you might as well just be dead. So we didn't want that to happen. We wanted people to revive each other. We want people to wait for medics rather than just clicking the give up button. And we think that this has been a pretty successful stab at solving that problem, because we see a lot of people now waiting for medics and even their other blueberries to help them up. And in addition to giving people 3 bandages, people aren't as greedy. It's not like, oh, I need this for myself, dude. This one extra bandage change really goes a long way into helping kind of convince other people to help pick up their friends. Now, we've reduced the medic in the loadouts. I didn't talk about this too much, but we've reduced the amount of medics per squads to 1. And so now medics are a very specialized role, especially with people picking up each other. We want to decrease the amount of medics needed. So we have we have medics healing at 2 times the speed now. So it's a very specialized healing role now. You don't need medics to really revive everyone. But hey, if no one in your squad takes a medic, yes, you'll be able to revive people in 8 seconds, but everyone's going to be running around with 35% health. So we still see people taking the medic role just to make sure that they can heal up their squad. One other thing that we want to add back, because this is hardcore, we wanted to add back dead. So dead is the idea that if you get killed by something or hit by something that is rather large, you instantly die. Straight to death screen, no give up screen. You can't get picked up by a medic. Dead is implemented for everything larger than a 50 cal round. So that's IEDs, airstrikes, cannon rounds, all that big boom stuff, and even the 50 cals and the HMG emplacements and stuff like that, that's gonna send you right to the death screen. So guess what? Before, when you saw a technical roll up on you in vanilla squad and it's just got a dishka, it's like, who cares? It's a dishka technical, it's useless, right? And you just shoot at the gunner and everything. Now, when that dishka technical rolls up on you in Squad Ops Hardcore mod, if that round hits you, you're going straight to the dead screen, buddy. And hand in hand with the suppression changes, these HMG or open top vehicles have become much more viable. So moving on to suppression changes, this is something that was really important that we brought in, because this is something that we get out of our One Life events, but doesn't translate into vanilla squad. In One Life events, suppression works because players don't want to die because they have 1 life. Now, it is incredibly hard to bring that kind of experience into public vanilla play. Games like Escape from Tarkov can do it because you have so much invested into your character you don't want to die. But in squad, or generally any other platoon shooter, if you get shot, you just sit in the revive screen and you wait and you come back and you respawn. So in order to get suppression to actually function and to get some basic infantry tactics working, or to make sure that when an HMG is shooting at you, you duck behind cover, or when someone is laying down fire on your position, you're not going to try to counter peek them because you have better aim. In order to get infantry tactics really ingrained into occupation and the hardcore mod, we had to go in and rework vanilla suppression. So now when you're getting shot at in the mod, your saturation kind of decreases a little bit, so you get a very obvious blur on the screen or a visual notification. And then in addition to that, every incoming round in proximity to your character will cause your character to slightly flinch, which means that if I'm getting shot at, and let's say my cursor's right here in the screen, if I get shot at, it'll do this slight jerk thing. And you might think that's really intrusive, but when you're playing, it actually makes sense. You feel like the round is coming at you. When that HMG cracks over your head in vanilla squad, you generally just see like this tiny little sway, and maybe you blur a little bit. But now when you get shot at with a large round, or even just a normal rifle round in squad, you flinch. And sometimes that has caused me in game to actually be like, holy crap, and I get down immediately, rather than in vanilla squad. I know so many veteran players, when they're getting shot at, they'll just 180 and try to get a head tap. That's just how it is in vanilla vanilla squad, because the system for suppression is just so, it's just so bad, I think. And especially in squad, like the way it ramps up, eventually you'll just have this huge sway on your screen going left and right with your mouse cursor, and it doesn't feel like you're being suppressed. It just feels like a gaming mechanic that's just causing your mouse to go crazy. Whereas in this version of suppression, you actually have a very violent reaction to incoming fire, which I think makes sense. So I definitely like this change, and I think a lot of people will see that this really does cause you to use infantry tactics like suppression and fire movement and fix and flank, just because when you get shot at or when you put fire on a target now, you know they're probably not going to peek you, because guess what? That 50 cal laying down fire on that building, while it's not hitting you, if you pop up to peek, you might get deaded if you get hit by a round, or that jerk is going to keep you from putting back effective fire. So really cool thing here. I think this little change to suppression really does make it so that actually firing your weapon in the direction of the enemy, despite not being able to see him, will actually influence the gameplay and the firefight as you push through. So really, really cool thing here. And I think as people play more and more of it, you'll actually see, and yes, you see it a lot now, people laying down suppressive fire in the mod. Vehicle changes. So we wanted to do something, and this has been a big complaint of squad in recent times here, is vehicle bloat. There have been a lot of vehicles on the map, just a lot of tanks, a lot of armor, strikers, Bradley, and then like Abrams, just so much armor that it just feels like an endless wave. So we've done a couple things to kind of adjust it. Most of our layers only have at most 4 armored vehicles, not including open top vehicles, because hey, 50 cal can go right through that thin door on a Humvee and stuff like that. But 4 armored vehicles per map with 2 at most. Most of them have 3 armored vehicles and 1 helicopter, but at most we always keep a cap at 4 and 2. We've added the VBIDs for the Insurgents and Militia, the IRF factions, as mentioned before. And then we've removed TOW and ATGM emplacements from the game. So the whole thing with TOW and ATGMs is like, yes, they are an anti-tank counter, but guess what? They're also an anti-everything counter. These things will take out helicopters, they'll take out lodges, they take out literally every vehicle in the game. And having them as emplacements that can go on fobs that are hidden in a tree, or just this tiny man-sized ATGM just sitting 2,000 clicks up in the dust, and you can't even see it, but he can track you and pop you from a mile away because you're this big vehicle. I think it's really bad for gameplay. So we've completely removed TOW and ATGM emplacements. They're still in the game in the form of, you know, BMPs getting their ATGMs, or, you know, the Bradley getting its TOW. So they're in on the vehicles, and that's a little bit more balanced because it's really hard to hide a Bradley, whereas it's really easy to hide an ATGM emplacement. Another thing that we've done is we've reduced all the spawn timers on vehicles to 2 minutes. Now, this is pretty controversial. A lot of people see this and think, oh my god, there's going to be a whole bunch of vehicle spam. So the reason why we do this is because, scrolling up here, if we look at the map for Kohat, it takes 5 to 10 minutes for armor to drive into the circle, period, already. We're not going to make you wait an additional 15 minutes on top of that. The drive-in alone is a pain in the ass, okay? You also have a 2-minute spawn time, so generally you're already waiting 12 minutes to get back into the fight. That's long enough in our opinion. We've also decreased vehicle bloat, which means that you don't see that many vehicles coming back on a 2-minute respawn timer. Another thing that we notice in Vanilla Squad is that because respawn timers are so long, what generally happens is that a armor squad on a team will dominate, and because the response time from the enemy armor, that respawn time, is so long, that armor can just dominate a map for like 30-ish minutes, and it doesn't feel good. Another reason, so every time that a vehicle gets destroyed, let's say I'm in an Abrams and I'm going up against T-72s, if I pop their T-72, I know I have about maybe 5-10 minutes of open, uncontested armor game time that I can use to, you know, get a push going, or break down a fob defense, or, you know, assist a flank, rather than, you know, completely dominating the map for, you know, 20 to 30-ish minutes until their T-72 comes back. I have about 5 to 10 minutes before I know I have to go back and hunt down their tank again. And I think that's a really good gameplay loop, because it means armor is always focused on fighting armor, and that also means that as an armor squad, let's say I'm a 3-man squad in an Abrams, if I lose my tank, in Vanilla Squad, I just roll into an infantry squad. I don't know what to do for like 10-15 minutes. I guess I join an infantry squad, I go dick around on mortars or something while I wait for my tank to come back. And I think that's really bad for platoon organization. By reducing it to 2-minute spawn times, that means if I die my tank, I respawn at main, I wait a minute, I get back in the tank, and now I'm driving in, and that drive-in is considered the respawn time. And the platoon stays organized. You know who your armored squad is. They're always going to be in armor. I don't like it when the armor squads are jumping around. Maybe they die in their armor. Oh god, we have to wait 15 minutes for the tank and then drive in. We're gonna go dick around as infantry. We're gonna go hop on the mortars or whatever. Like, it's so confusing. I think it's bad for platoon organization in public gameplay, just because you want things to stay as constant as possible so the platoon can work together. The more things you have moving around in a public match, the more confusing things get, and people don't work together because God knows who's keeping track of who's got which vehicle, and we don't know where it is, and it's just so much confusion that is all solved with a 2-minute respawn timer. Map marker changes. This is something that is, still on the, I guess we could say the testing block. We don't necessarily know if we're going to keep it this way, but as of this video, right now, we've changed how people can see other players. On the map, when you're looking, you can see your squad and other squad leaders and other vehicles. That's it. You can't see Blueberry Rifleman. So what this essentially does is it focuses, going back to how this focuses platoon organization, the 2-minute respawn time focuses platoon organization, the map marker changes, and making sure that you kind of only see your squad and other squad leaders really put some blinders on. And what this has done is we've seen a lot of players stick with their freaking squad leader now, because they can't see where other people are on the map. They stick to what they know and what is constant, which is their squad. So we see a lot of squads sticking together. A lot of lone wolf stuff has been removed. We see less people going out all on their own, because as a player, when you load in and all you can see is your squad, I know that experienced, because I've done it myself, I know experienced lone wolves are people who are good at the game. They'll look at the map in vanilla, they'll see where all the players are, they'll see where all the players are looking, and they'll just go lone wolf over there because they can read the map and know where to go to get kills. By removing this, you work with your squad, and squads stay together in order to operate. So you get a lot more infantry tactics and teamwork, and even communication, because you need to communicate with your squad leader to get the bigger picture of what is going on the map. And that is something that, once again, we're trying to drive home, is communication and teamwork. I don't want people looking at the map and saying, oh, I know exactly where to go in Lone Wolf because I can see all my friendlies, I see where they're looking, and I'm just going to go over here and not listen to my SL. So we are making it a lot more teamwork focused. This does have the, I guess you could say, negative side of being really reliant on squad leaders, and that can be a good or bad thing depending on how you look at it. It could be really good because it means you need teamwork. It could be really bad because if you have a bad squad leader, you really feel it now in this mod. But also if you have a good squad leader, you really feel that too. Squad leader player markers have been changed to NATO unit markers. This is something that we're tooling around with as well. When you look on the map in the actual mod, you'll see the NATO infantry markers, or the NATO equivalent. And so what we're doing here is, because you can only see other squad leaders, is we're turning those squad leader unit markers or player markers into unit markers. So when you look at the map, you see the box, that is where the squad is. Now, you're not necessarily thinking that's where the squad leader is. You're thinking that's where the squad is. So making sure that we kind of put blinders on everyone to make sure that they're focused, everyone's focused, they're working with their team, and we're getting that communication that I think a lot of squad players are looking for. We've removed the first person SL ping, which is the in-game SL ping that pops up. It was just really immersion breaking and kind of overpowered, because you could instantly direct some fire onto a target. Now you have to communicate a little bit more. It's making it a little bit more teamwork oriented. And then finally, we've removed the SL marking, as rangefinders have been added. So, when you drop a mark on something in-game in vanilla, it'll show you on the bottom near your compass the range of it. We've added rangefinders so that you can pull out your binocs as an SL or FTL or marksman, hold down the left trigger, and then now you'll get an exact range on the target. So really cool functionality here. Commander system changes. Now this was a big one as well. So one thing that I've always talked about before is how squad commander role always felt like it was kind of tacked on. Most commanders in squad vanilla just take the role in addition to their squad leader infantry role to call in assets every 20 minutes. That's literally it. There's very little direction going on. Maybe sometimes you'll get the occasional commander who makes sure that he's focused and he's dealing out orders to the team, and he's making sure that the platoon is organized and managed properly. But in most vanilla games, it's just an infantry squad leader or a different squad leader that's taken the role so they can drop arty or air assets every X or so minutes. We've changed the commander system in the mod. Now you can be in a solo squad and volunteer for commander. So you can be a one-man squad that is completely focused and is looking in the map all the time, organizing people, marking things, telling people where to go. And then we've also reworked these assets so that you can use them more commonly or more rapidly, more frequently. So there's a lot of systems here that have been changed. Let's go straight into it. First off, keeping in mind the other change of the map marker changes, you really need to, as a commander, lead the team. You have to. It's no longer this role that you can just kind of take as a second thought. You need to be focused as the commander. When you take the commander role, you're commanding. You're leading the team. You're telling people where they should go. You're telling people where the fobs are. You're marking enemy assets. You're making sure the map markers are accurate and up to date. You're doing everything you can to make sure that you're managing the platoon and so that the platoon is organized. Because if you don't, with the map marker changes removed and with all this reliance on communication, it turns into an absolute chaotic shit show. And like I said, that's good and bad. It's good because we get the gameplay that we want. It's bad because, hey, if you have a bad commander or a bad squad leader, you really do feel it now. So what have we done to actually let commander role be its own full role? We've made sure that all of the assets are on a much shorter cooldown. So artillery, that 30 to 50 round artillery blast that happens every 45 minutes in vanilla, it's now on a 10-minute cooldown. But wait, it's now reduced to 8 rounds, which means you can call this in every 10 minutes and it's got a reduced round of 8. Or a reduced round count of 8, which means that you can call it in pretty frequently, but it's not going to wipe a complete fob off the map. It's just going to do some damage so that your infantry can push with it. And that's something that I want all commanders to keep in mind, is that these strikes are to be used in conjunction with an infantry push. Because if you just drop this on a fob, yeah, you'll get some kills, but nothing will really happen. They'll rebuild, they'll reman their positions, and nothing really changes on the map. The landscape doesn't really change. So as a commander, if you do choose to command in the occupation game mode, make sure that you're using all your strikes and all of this in conjunction with infantry. The next thing that we've done is reduced airstrikes to 10 minutes. So just making sure that we can get these pretty often. And like SU-25 strikes and A-10 runs, they're not too overpowered. They can pop vehicles, but vehicles are on a 2-minute respawn time now. And reminder that these can't take down other CF fobs or habs. Other CF fobs and habs, once again, can only be removed by shovels. So even if you drop this on a fob, radio, or hab, it's not going to get rid of it. So we really want to get rid of that cheese of like, hey, you just spent all this time building this fob and getting everything built up. Well, guess what? I'm just going to drop an airstrike on it and now it's gone. Or I'm just going to drop a 50-round artillery strike on it and boom, your super fob's gone. These will damage them. They'll set them back. They'll prep the ground for an infantry push, but it's not going to one-man, one-click destroy enemy fobs. UAV is now on a 2-minute cooldown. So this is pretty much like immediately when it's done, it's pretty much back up again with a longer 10-minute duration, which means, like I said, the commander should be in his map or in the UAV, marking, directing, and commanding the team. So we really turn commander into its own role and give you the tools to organize and push. Okay? IRF is a little bit different. We have IRF drone, kind of mirrored with the UAV, smoke mortars, heavy mortars, but we also added an IRF artillery strike every 10 minutes. So that's a rocket barrage that does a lot of damage as well. So this is the majority of all the changes that have been gone in, and you can kind of see the direction that we're going in for. A lot of teamwork, a lot of communication, and just focusing, really focusing on that thematic, dynamic experience. In the future, we have a lot of cool things planned as well. You can check out our public Trello. As always, if you are looking to download the mod, check out the link in the description down below. You can go through this whole document on your own. In the future, we are looking to add more organized squad creation. So games like Postscriptum or Hell Let Loose, where you pick, hey, I'm making an infantry squad, I'm making a logi squad, an armor squad, I'm clicking for commander. Making sure that we can try to do that. That's something that's on our wish list. An advanced medical system, something that's a little bit more engaging. Nothing so complex as like, oh, we're doing surgery in squad now, but something that's a little bit more in-depth and engaging, or has, maybe a skill cap for medics. Custom maps, factions, vehicles, weapons. We've already added in a couple of custom vehicles like the V-Bids. We've added in the Rangers. We're adding in an MP5. We put the Humvees back in. We put shotguns in. There's a lot of cool things there that we plan on doing, custom maps as well. And then finally, a construction system rework, reworking the values, making sure there's more deployables, just a lot of cool stuff. The construction system rework is probably the next rework that we're going to be doing. And like I said, you can find out more about all of this on our public Trello. But that's it, guys. I hope you did enjoy today's video. I know we went through a lot here, but this is something, as you might be able to hear from my voice, like I'm very passionate about. This is something that I think makes Squad one of the most exciting games for me to play these days. And just working on this mod and trying to get that gameplay that I know a lot of the guys over at Ops and a lot of you guys who watch the channel, you know, crave that teamwork, communication-oriented experience, infantry experience, I think is really exciting to me, because I want to deliver this to you guys, and it's a really fun thing for me to be working on, and I think it's really rewarding to see a lot of people enjoying it. So if you want to play it, squadops.gg, occupation-only servers. We are getting a couple other, you know, mixed mode servers up as well. But yeah, this is what I've been cranking on. This is why I haven't really been making too many videos recently. I've been learning the SDK, leading the mod dev team. Huge thanks to Wasti and everyone else at the Squad Ops mod dev team, absolutely chugging through these updates, and we have a long way to go. So once again, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you did enjoy today's video. As always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. And if you don't even own Squad, but you watch this entire video, pick up a copy at karmakut.com and support the channel at the same time. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and until next time, good hunting.